It was all a hoax from the beginning, okay? Oh, I have so much to cover, and I'm gonna try to do it in the shortest amount of time possible. So, I'm so with Disney and the Sony situation, there's so much depth to it. I believe that Disney has been conning Sony from the beginning, and Sony finally stood up to it. I'm gonna explain why. It has been long known that the merchandising rights to any intellectual property is the peak, the cream of the crop. I don't care if you sold $100 million in tickets, you're selling $100 million in toys is much better, and it usually is way more than any ticket sales. Disney had an agreement with Sony. Sony owns the Spider-Man character. They own the licensing rights. They have ownership of it. It's not like the Fox situation where Fox had movie rights and had stipulations to those movie rights where they had to make movies every X amount of years to maintain those rights. Sony actually owns a stake in the Spider-Man character. Marvel cannot go and put Spider-Man in a game without Sony's approval. When Sony said, yes, you know what, our movies are flopping and we're gonna give you access to him in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we're gonna give you the merchandising rights. That right there is already Sony doing above and beyond what any studio can offer. And all they ask for in return is they keep the movie box tickets, and even Disney got a percentage of those. So what does Disney do? They introduce Spider-Man as a freshman in high school. They cast a young, likable, I didn't buy it, Tom Holland, and they make him idolize Tony Stark. They create the entire character to be based around the idolization of Tony Stark. You do not have the current Spider-Man without Tony Stark and the MCU. They interwove him so hard, they didn't even put Uncle Ben in these films. They left him out. So whenever he has to dig deep and he's in the first movie pushing that thing off him, who does he think about? He doesn't think about Uncle Ben. He thinks of Tony Stark. Why? Not because of any character reason, not for anything, but they're saying, if you want to leave us in the future, because the deal is a short-term deal, you're going to have to reboot again. They were setting them up for failure. And what happens? Spider-Man Far From Home comes out. They throw him into the Marvel Cinematic Universe even more, makes good money, and then they go, Sony, all right, you want to re-up? Fine. But the last deal's not going to work. What we want is 50% of the profits and all the merchandising rights. What the hell? And what are they saying? Well, we've made the character popular for you. If I'm Sony, I am insulted. I am really? What the hell? 50%? So you come with 50, you come with the merchandising rights. No thanks. Okay, and if it were not for Venom making as much money as it did, Sony might have been pressured into it. But they said, nah, we did the Spider-Man game, we did Into the Spider-Verse, which was an excellent movie, we did Venom, which I personally didn't even freaking see, but did good numbers. We're good. We don't need your corporate greed, because what does Disney do? Come here, I need you as an example, come here. They get an organism and they envelop it like a weed. They bite it, and they just take over. They take over like a freaking entity from hell. So they take over Star Wars and they rip it apart. And they take over all these live action movies and they rip them apart and they repackage it and they show you the same thing over and over because there's nothing artistic or creative coming from that studio. It's just all about the Benjamins, baby. But it just goes to show you the greed of Disney. And I'm so glad Sony stuck up to them. And I hope they just make smart business decisions, because Sony, sometimes they run like crap. But Sony is not like Fox. Sony actually cares about Spider-Man. The direction they have taken him in the past has been questionable. They've had highs and lows, but they care. You know, they care. Fox didn't care. They just spit out movies like a factory. It's so funny because you have these MCU loyalists. I love the MCU. I've been covering it for so long. But I've seen it. I've seen the good and the bad. And you have these MCU loyalists that will attack anyone that's against the MCU. Guys, it's like saying, hey, billion-dollar corporation, have more. Please, keep feeding us your corporate slop. And so the daughter of Stan Lee comes out in defense of Sony, saying like, these people, don't even contact me when my dad dies. Don't do this, don't do that. I'd rather have the characters that Stan Lee made told from different points of view. Disney had no part in these characters, but they're trying to Disney-fy them all and put their own stamp on it and package it. And you don't, if you're not gonna give us all the money, forget it. They're such like a mafia. And the daughter comes out in defense of Sony, and people are attacking the daughter. Nah, Sony, keep doing what you're doing. I want you to make gold. I want you to make gold. I want you to be successful, and I want you to show that you don't need these people. Spider-Man in the MCU, honestly, that was like my dream come true. Like, wow, Spider-Man interacting with all these characters. What the hell? What do we get out of it? It wasn't like the Hulk and Spider-Man and Iron Man and all these pieces like are really coming together. I guess the only thing was the airport battle, which was kind of, to me, underwhelming. I mean, it's technically good, but okay, Spider-Man in the MCU, to me, was a dud because they never built him up properly. They put him as like a little kid looking up to all these people. He wasn't Spider-Man. He was Spider-Teen. Sony, good job. Keep it up.